Hey, this is Mac with MacSair29, and I know it's been a long time since I put up a video of a new car, but it's been a long time since I've owned a new car. So with the news about MT4G3 being discontinued at Habaco, and then HRP being the new distributor, and a lot of uncertainty about getting parts and what's going to happen with that brand, and the new vehicles not coming to market yet for Thunder Tiger, I started looking around to see if I could replace what I had with the MT4G3. So I saw the Kraton come on the market, and I saw a bunch of other people getting them, and a lot of mixed reviews about the durability. People love it, people hate it. A lot of people had issues with the speed controllers. And so finally, after a lot of hemming and hawing, I decided to go ahead and grab one up. And so I got this thing Thursday the 5th, I believe it was, in March. And I've had the chance to run 2 full battery packs through it. And so basically I'm just going to kind of go through my initial impressions of the truck after having driven it. There's been plenty of unboxing videos, first impressions of just taking it out of the kit and looking at it. I'm sorry, taking it out of the box and looking at it. But I thought I'd just go ahead and take it out and drive it before I even talked about whether I liked it or not. So this obviously is a 1/8 scale 4-wheel drive, brushless, and you can call it a truggy, you can call it a monster truck. It's marketed as a monster truck. It's similar to the MT4G3. Show you some quick things about it. The body, a lot of people have talked about the body before. It's just a generic as far as the thickness and everything. So the truck itself, it's just like I said, it's a pretty standard layout. It's just an open design, which is really similar to every other truggy that's on the market. And so I replaced the speed controller. I didn't want to risk a fire, so I put in, this is from my Thunder Tiger EB4G3. It's a Ace RC BLC80C or something like that. It's an 80 amp 4S rated speed controller, and I really don't care about running 6S right now, so I won't worry about it right now. And other than that, the first 2 runs, that's the only thing I changed. The servo is a fairly decent power servo. I haven't had any issues with it. It turns the tires fine. It has a fairly decent speed. And it is running at 6 volts. I think this actually puts out 5.5 volts on the BEC. And out of the box, the speed controller, the stock speed controller for this truck puts out 7 or 7.2 volts or something like that. So this is getting less voltage than normally, and I still think has fairly decent power. So I took a few measurements if anyone cares. So let's see, the motor I measured at 66 millimeters long by 40 millimeters in diameter. It's 43 millimeters with the fins. The shock towers are 5 millimeters thick. The tires are about 6 1/4 by 3 1/2 wide, and the shock shafts were 3.5 millimeters. Let's see, the shock bodies were 18 millimeters in diameter, and I measured from the center of each eyelet in the front. I didn't take them off of the truck, but I just kind of let the suspension travel as far as it could with them still attached, and I got 4 3/4 inches on the front and 5 5/8. It may be a little longer because I don't know, it may not travel as much in the back, I don't know. But 4 3/4, 5 5/8 roughly are the shock lengths. And then let's see, all the shafts, the centers and the dog bones and the CVDs are all 5 millimeters thick. The turnbuckles in the front are 4 millimeters, and the ones in the rear are 5 millimeters. And let's see, I measured the battery box, and it is 50 millimeters wide, and it came with these little blocks. It looks like they have kind of little clips for holding battery wires, and I think it's set up out of the box for running two 2S's or two 3S's, where you can have them kind of offset like this. And so I had to move one of them out towards the end a little bit to get a 4S LiPo fit, and it fit perfectly with them all the way out to the ends. And the way it's set up right now, it is 138 millimeters long, and from end to end without those, it's about 157 millimeters. And then the blocks themselves are removable if you take the battery tray out, and they're about 8 millimeters thick. So you could take them out, leave them in, whatever. And then the A-arms are 10 millimeters thick. The front and rear, I didn't measure the uppers. And then I have a 15 and an 1/8 inch wheelbase, and then a 15 and a half inches from outside to outside of the shock towers. I don't know if anyone cares about that. So anyway, so the first run, I got it out. I ran it on a Turnigy 20C LiPo, and it would wheelie. You can see in my videos, it would wheelie a little bit. It had decent speed, but on like asphalt and like those kind of surfaces, it would just unload all the power to the front when you got up to speed, just kind of like the MT4 G3 did stock, with kind of acts similar to just grease in the center diff. If you kind of punched it on a high traction, it would kind of lift up a little bit, then it would unload and fall back down, and then on asphalt it didn't seem to even want to lift the front tires off the ground, maybe an inch or two. So then I put my next run, I ran a 4S SPC brand 50C 5000 milliamp hour LiPo, and it acted pretty much the same as far as that goes. The battery just didn't get as hot after the run, and I got 15 to 20, it's just a standard 15-20 minute run depending on how much you hit the throttle and what you're driving like. So decent speed. I did take the 12 tooth pinion gear out and install the 14 tooth pinion gear just right out of the box. I really like the punch and the speed. It's perfect for me. And after a 15 to 20 minute run, the speed controller was about 85 degrees, the motor was like 125, and the battery was about 90 degrees. This is all Fahrenheit. So I think that there's the gearing, it's got plenty of room to grow. It's been, it's late winter here, it's been between 50 and 62 degrees. Out of the box too, the front shocks seem to be really under dampened, where the rear was fairly nice. I don't know what all that creaking's about, but so I would put 50 weight in the front just today, and I do like it a little bit better. I took the center diff out, and it removes just like the MT4. I'm comparing it to that a lot, because I believe this is a really similar in a lot of respects to what the market's intended for, and it's laid out very similarly. So there's 5 screws on the bottom you take out, and then you have to take this kind of roll cage thing out to get the center diff off, and then there's just 4 screws that hold the spur gear on. And inside was, in the manual, says it's a 10,000 CST weight oil, and so, but there was hardly any in there. They barely wetted the gears. So I put in, I'm trying something out. I tried mixing silicone oils. I don't know if it's proper or not, but I have 500,000 and 100,000. The 500,000 in my MT4, it wheelies almost too much. Sometimes it's hard to keep the nose down. Even at like 25, 30 miles an hour, I'll punch it and it'll just keep wheeling and wheeling and wheeling. And sometimes I don't want it to, and it still does it, or it'll backflip on the slightest bump, and I punch it, it'll backflip over and start getting all crazy, which is kind of fun. But I wanted to have this one a little bit tamer, since it is a similar vehicle, but I want to set it up a little bit more like a traditional truggy setup. So it has some wheelie capabilities, but not a wheelie king, not, you know, whatever. And in no way I'm promoting the Wheelie King by HBI. So I put in about half and half, 500,000. It's a Traxxas brand, and then I had some, I can't remember the brand of it, this 100,000. And I put that in there, and I really like it. It does wheelie. It won't wheelie really once it gets going. Maybe after about 10 miles an hour, it just doesn't have enough torque or the transfer power is too much for it to really lift the front end up. But will at a rolling, just once you get past the kinetic energy or at stop, it'll wheelie just fine. And it's pretty fun that way. I launched it just today. I was driving on my cul-de-sac, and I set up a ramp, and on that ramp of my MT4 I can backflip at will. This thing, I couldn't really get it to backflip, and I don't know if it's just the layout, the design, or if it's just that the center diff is just a little looser, or maybe I'm just being cautious. I don't know. It didn't feel like I was, but who knows. Anyway, durability wise, I haven't had one issue. Side note, there's been a lot of talk about an updated version. There was version 1 that had the thinner front knuckles around the bearing on the outer side of the knuckles, the pillow balls, and people had those splitting and breaking. So ARMA had come out with the new vehicles with the newer, thicker ones. I happen to get both. One side has the thinner, older version, and the other side has the thicker, newer version. So I guess I hate to compare which, if there really is a problem with the one. And I don't know about the speed controller, if there's a new version or not. This is the speed controller that came with it. In the bottom there's a sticker. It says S/WV11. So you could take that as version 2. Maybe it's version 11. I don't know. But anyway, that's the speed controller that came with the car. And today I was launching it, and I could have a pretty good, decent way to measuring the height, because I kept hitting the limb of this tree that hangs over from my neighbor's yard. And so I measured that limb I kept hitting, and it was 11 feet high. So I was jumping this routinely, I don't know, a dozen or so times, 11 feet high. And then I measured the distance from the end of the ramp where it launched from to where it was landing on the grass, and it was between 18 and 20 feet. And then I had a lower ramp where I would get about, I could jump just a hair over my head, so roughly 6 feet high, and I launched that about 25 feet repeatedly. So that's a fair amount of height and distance to jump a 10-pound vehicle. And so I did that for about 15 minutes today, just jumping repeatedly and repeatedly and repeatedly. And so far I've gone through, and there's nothing cracked, broken, bent, no problems at all. So, and then taking into account the 2 previous bash sessions, which I have most of the footage on YouTube. Also, that's my standard style of bashing you've seen, where I'm jumping it and stuff. And so that's what I would put any other truck through. And so I'm pretty happy. I mean, so far it's holding up. Time will tell how fast parts wear down, or if I take a really hard hit or something. And so just generic stuff is, it comes with a pretty, in my reach, pretty nice little T-wrench. It's got your 17 millimeter, and then 10, and looks like a 7 and an 8. So that's not too bad. And then the radio is the standard FlySky type radio that I'm sure you've seen a million times. The interesting thing, I'm sure you know this, is it's the exact same radio, just this says TDTX1. This came with my Team Durango DEX210 RTR, and this says ATX100. same exact radio. And just for a note, it did bind up directly to this FSGT3C Fly Sky radio, and so just bound directly to this. So if anyone is curious, your Fly Sky radio should bind directly to it with the receiver that comes in the truck. And then the manual is a fairly decent manual. It does include like the Italian and, or I don't know how you want to say it, and the Typhon. All the vehicles are kind of laid out in this one manual. And so that's pretty much my initial thoughts. It seems to be a durable vehicle. It didn't break on the first couple of drives out. That's good. I did hit the wing pretty hard a couple times, and there doesn't seem to be any noticeable damage so far. I don't know if I got newer wing mounts that have been talked about or not. And so time will tell. Like I said, I like it so far. It drives really similarly to the MT4. Maybe a little tamer, but as far as just that truggy feel with the monster truck tires, I think it's just right in there with any other type of vehicle like that. And I thought it was a blast, and for the amount of money it costs, I got it for $430 with the coupon codes at Tower Hobbies. I think it's hard to beat what you get for the amount of money this thing costs. And anyway, I kind of do like the design of this better than the MT4. Just I like this traditional open chassis design. I don't ever did like that the tray that the MT4 came with the top lid. I took that off about as fast as I could and put my own battery strapping system in. And oh, and I guess I can mention sway bars front and rear come installed, and everything's fully adjustable. The diffs pop right open by taking these diff cover, these gearbox covers off, and everything seems very accessible, and the wire routing seems fairly decent. They had the servo wire routed underneath the tray that they have for the speed controller, and these little clips that it attaches to underneath, and then it routes underneath this chassis support and then into the receiver box. And then they had the leads for the speed controller to the battery snapped into this hook on top. And I didn't use that. I have this just laid over here. It's kind of supported by the battery once I strap it in, and then I use that clip just to tie wrap all my my leads off my speed controller and my receiver that go into the battery into that. If anyone's curious what this is all about, I had a external BEC on my other truck, the EV4, and this is a little JST plug that I also soldered a female onto my BEC, so I left that on there. I can plug in that with that, so that's what that's all about. Anyway, if you have any questions, feel free to post them. I have a running thread on Ultimate RC. I'm Mac 29 on there, and the thread is called Mac on Kraton. And if you have any questions, also you can go there and post them. There'll be other people that will probably jump in the conversation and might answer questions too. And I will be posting a future video, probably maybe in 6 weeks if I get a lot of chance to run it. Hopefully it doesn't rain too much here, and then I don't like running in the water. And maybe after that, another 6 weeks, depending on if anything major happens to it. And if it breaks or anything major happens, I will also post those things on Ultimate RC and maybe make a quick video about that. Anyway, again, thanks for watching, and we'll be seeing you soon.